The heathen are sunk down in the pit that they made. In the net which they hid is their own foot taken. The Lord is known by the judgment which he executeth. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands. The wicked shall be turned into hell.
Everything points to one of the cyanides. No distinctive smell of prussic acid, probably potassium cyanide. It acts pretty well instantaneously.
You mean she must have put the stuff in her dish herself?
Seems like it.
Suicide? That's a queer go.
You'd never think that she would kill herself.
You know, Doctor, it doesn't seem right to me. I shouldn't have said Miss Marston was a suicidal type of a lady.
I agree.
And what about the record? The whole thing is preposterous. Preposterous! Slanging accusations about like this. Something must be done about it. This fellow Owen, however he is.
That's just it. Who is he?
That is exactly what we must go into very carefully. I suggest that you get your wife to bed, first of all, Rogers. Then come back here.
Yes, madam.
I'll give you a hand, Rogers. She's all right. I've given her a sedative to take.
Now then, Rogers, we must get to the bottom of this. Who is this Mr. Owen?
He owns this place, madam.
I am aware of that fact. What I want you to tell me is what you yourself know about the man.
I can't say, madam. You see, I've never seen him.
You have never seen him? What do you mean?
We've only been here just under a week, sir, my wife and I. We were engaged by Lesser through an agency, the Regina Agency in Plymouth.
All established firm.
Go on with your story. You were engaged, as you say, by letter.
Nothing, sir. We got orders by Lesser again to prepare the rooms for a house party, and then yesterday by the afternoon I got another letter from Mr. Owen. He said he and Mrs. Owen were detained and to do the best we could and give it the instructions about dinner and coffee and putting on the gramophone record.
It would be well, I think, for everybody to come forward with all the information they have regarding the owner of this house. We're all his guests. I think it would be profitable if each of us were to explain exactly how that came about.
There's something very peculiar about all this. I received a letter with a signature that was not very easy to read. It purported to be from a woman I had met at a certain summer resort 2 or 3 years ago. I took the name to be either Ogden or Oliver. I am acquainted with a Mrs. Oliver and also with a Miss Ogden. I am quite certain that I have never met or become friendly with anyone of the name Owen.
I begin to understand. Miss Claythorne?
He wanted to take me on as his secretary.
Dr. Armstrong?
I was called in professionally.
I see. You had no previous acquaintanceship with the family?
No, a colleague of mine was mentioned in the letter.
To give verisimilitude, yes. And that colleague, I presume, was momentarily out of touch with you?
Yes.
Look here, I just thought of something.
In a minute.
But
We will take things one at a time, Mr. Lombard. We are at present inquiring into the causes which have resulted in our being assembled here tonight. General MacArthur?
Got a letter. From this fellow Owen. Mentioned some old pals of mine who were to be here. Hoped I had excuse informal invitation. Haven't kept the letter, I'm afraid.
Mr. Lombard?
same sort of thing. Invitation, mention of mutual friends. I fell for it all right. I've done up the letter.
Just now we had a somewhat disturbing experience. An apparently disembodied voice spoke to us all by name, uttering certain precise accusations against us. We will deal with those accusations presently. At the moment I am interested in a minor point. Amongst the names recited was that of William Henry Blore. But as far as we know, there is no one named Blore amongst us. The name of Davis was not mentioned. What have you to say about that, Mr. Davis?
Oh, cat's out of the bag, it seems. I suppose I'd better admit that my name isn't Davis.
You are William Henry Blore?
That's right.
I will add something. Not only are you here under a false name, Mr. Blore, but in addition, I've noticed this evening that you're a first-class liar. You claim to have come from Natal, South Africa. I know South Africa and Natal, and I'm prepared to swear that you've never set foot in South Africa in your life. Now then, you swine. Any explanations?
You gentlemen have got me wrong. I've got my credentials and you can see them. I'm an ex-CID man. I run a detective agency in Plymouth. I was put on this job.
By whom?
This man Owen enclosed a handsome money order for expenses and instructed me as to what he wanted done. I was to join the house party posing as a guest. I was given all your names. I was to watch you all.
Any reason given?
Mrs. Owen's jewels. Mrs. Owen's my foot. I don't believe there's any such person.
Your conclusions are, I think, justified. You look Norman Owen. In Miss Brent's letter, though the signature of the surname is a mere scroll, the Christian names are reasonably clear. Una Nancy. In either case, you notice, the same initials. You look Norman Owen, Una Nancy Owen, each time, that is to say, U.N. Owen, or by a slight stretch of fancy, unknown.
This is fantastic. Mad.
Oh yes, I've no doubt in my mind that we have been invited here by a madman, probably a dangerous homicidal lunatic. I wish to say this. Our unknown friend accuses me of the murder of one Edward Seaton. I remember Seaton perfectly well. He came up before me for trial in June of the year 1930. He was charged with the murder of an elderly woman. He was very ably defended and made a good impression on the jury in the witness box. Nevertheless, on the evidence, he was certainly guilty. I summed up accordingly, and the jury brought in a verdict of guilty. In passing sentence of death, I concurred with the verdict. An appeal was lodged on the grounds of misdirection. The appeal was rejected, and the man was duly executed. I wish to say before you all that my conscience is perfectly clear on the matter. I did my duty, and nothing more. I passed sentence on a rightly convicted murderer.
If I might just have a word, sir.
Go ahead, Rogers.
There was a mention, sir, of me and Mrs. Rogers, and of Miss Brady. There isn't a word of truth in it, sir. My wife and I were with Miss Brady till she died. She was always in poor health, sir. Always from the time she came to her. There was a storm, sir, that night. The night that she was taken bad. The telephone was out of order. We couldn't get the doctor for her. I meant for him, sir, on foot. But he got there too late. We'd done everything possible for her, sir. Devoted, sir, here we were. Anyone will tell you the same. There was never a word against us. Not a word.
About those natives. Story's quite true. I left them. Matter of self-preservation. We were lost in the bush. I and a couple of other fellows took what the food was there and we cleared out. Not quite the act of Puka Sahib, I'm afraid, but self-preservation's man's first duty. And natives don't mind dying, you know. They don't feel about it as Europeans do.
You left them to die?
Yes, I left them to die.
Bastard! I'd like to tell you about that child, Cyril Hamilton. I was nursery governess to him. He was forbidden to swim out far. One day, when my attention was distracted, he started off. I swam after him. I couldn't get there in time. It was awful. But it wasn't my fault. At the inquest, the coroner exonerated me. And his mother, she was so kind. But even she didn't blame me. Why should this awful thing be said? It's not fair. Not fair.
Fellow's a madman. Got a bee in his bonnet. Got hold of the wrong end of the stick all round. We'd better go to bed. It's late.
Yes, we must get some sleep.
I haven't cleared up yet, in the dining room. I'll just put things straight in the dining room and make sure everything's locked up right, and then I'll turn in.
Can you do that? Good night.
Good night.
Okay, gentlemen.
Sweet
Good night.
dreams.
Sleep well. 9